The coughing started before sunrise. Children huddled close, wrapped in thin blankets, their faces chapped red by cold and wind. The line of wagons hadn't moved yet, but already the march had begun. Mothers shifted their children onto aching hips. Elders pulled shawls tight against the damp, and somewhere up front, a soldier shouted, "Just once." Then the line moved again. It was the winter of 1838, and the Cherokee people were being driven west, 1 foot at a time. Thousands of them, men, women, children, most on foot. Some riding wagons with broken axles and no springs, others wrapped in layers of homespun, carrying what little they'd managed to save. Soldiers called it a relocation. Officials called it removal. The Cherokee called it Nuna Dowel Tsuni, the trail where they cried. They had signed no treaty, not willingly. Their leaders had fought the order for years, but in the end, their land was taken, their homes burned, and they were rounded up in holding camps with no medicine, no food, and no answers. And then, they were marched west. The journey covered over 800 miles, from Georgia, Tennessee, and North Carolina to what is now Oklahoma. The ground turned to mud beneath their feet. Rain soaked through their clothing. When the rivers rose, they waited. When the snow came, they kept walking. There were no breaks, no rest, no time to bury the dead. At the start of the march, a Cherokee woman named White Rain walked beside her husband and 2 children. By the time they reached the Mississippi, she was alone, her youngest lost to fever, her husband too weak to lift his head. The soldier, watching them, said nothing, just motioned for her to keep walking. They crossed frozen rivers in open boats, the ice scraping beneath their feet. Horses drowned, wagons cracked, and those who couldn't climb on board were left to wait, soaked, shivering, and silent. Some tried to run, others tried to die. A boy collapsed near the Arkansas border. His mother tried to carry him, but her arms gave out. They sat together in the dirt until a soldier pulled her forward. The boy didn't move again. By the time they reached the prairie, the Cherokee were unrecognizable, skin drawn tight over bone, coughs that rattled through the night, eyes fixed not on the horizon, but on the space between steps. Just one more, just one more. They left behind more than land. They left behind graves, churches, names carved into trees. They left behind songs they were no longer allowed to sing, and still, they kept walking. Across the South, other tribes had already faced their own removals. The Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, and Seminole. All had marched. All had buried their children in shallow roadside graves. And still the line moved west, one people at a time, erasing a world as it went. An estimated 16,000 Cherokee began the journey. Nearly 4,000 died before reaching Oklahoma, some from disease, others from starvation, many from exposure, falling asleep in the cold and never waking up. Their bodies were wrapped in what fabric remained, their names whispered once, then lost to the wind. It didn't end when they arrived. The land they were promised was dry, unfamiliar. The people already living there greeted them with suspicion. Food was scarce. Grief hung over every camp like smoke. But they rebuilt. They sang their songs quietly, then louder. They rewrote their laws, opened schools, planted new crops. They told their children what had happened, so they would not forget. And they didn't. The Trail of Tears wasn't one road. It wasn't one tribe. It was a series of forced marches that shattered nations and scarred a continent. There were no maps, no honor guards, just long lines of people walking through rain, holding on to what little remained of the lives they were torn from. A people forced to march into silence, but not disappear. And somewhere along those forgotten paths, the wind still carries their names. Thank you for listening to Deserted Trails, Subscribe for more forgotten stories from the old frontier.